He wears a red bandana, plays the cool piano in a honky tonk down in Mexico. Today we are going to bring the fun back into music production. Today we're going to layer up a mega snare. I'm going to show you my favourite way and my easy way to layer up a snare to make something fat, interesting, unique, different. I've prepared a little loop this morning for you guys so we can have something to work with. But most importantly, we're going to pick a great snare to begin with, because as I've mentioned in all of my videos before, if you have the internet, it means you have access to some great snare samples. You know, you can spend 6 hours making your own one if you want, but some of us haven't got enough time. But luckily we have Wi-Fi, and that being the case, it's very, very easy to find a great quality snare. But, you know, the idea is obviously we want to make our music unique and different and make it our own. So how can we use a great snare but then also give it our own twist? That's what I like to do. So we're going to layer up this snare drum with 7 different sounds that I've just selected. I don't know if they're going to necessarily fit perfectly on the snare, but I'm just hoping for the best, and we'll make it work one way or another. But here's the loop that I've got to work with today, and to create a little bass line to go under a little drum loop that I've got here, just from some drum samples: hat, kick, snare, and like a background hat loop. Simple basic drum samples, DNB samples, and a bass line from my latest Vital pack. There he is shilling his presets again, the Vital Vengeance, the black neon preset, which I really like. And what I've done for the black neon preset is I've created 2 channels because I wanted to have 2 different speeds. So you can change the speed macro over here, and the first channel is like the slow rhythm, and I've got some lovely little gliding grace notes, and I've created a little melody. And then I've got like a second channel down here where I've turned the speed right up, and I've got like a faster rhythm. And then by playing them together, I've made a beat that kind of fits with the drums. Sounds like this. So I just wanted to like make it a bit random and fun and have some like interesting changes and stuff going on. And next, what we're going to do then is going to layer up this snare. So that's the whole point of this video, really. So on its own, already like quite a loud, in-your-face snare with like, you know, filling out a lot of the frequency range already. So it's not really lacking anything. But we're going to just make it more interesting now by adding on some new layers to it. So I have 3 rules for when you're adding in a new layer on top of a fat snare like this. And well, the most important thing before I even start those 3 rules is there's no real point, you know, if you've got that one fat snare sample that you found on the internet out of the 1,964 fat snare samples that there are on the internet, you've picked one of them. There's no point in then finding another one and then trying to like put a square on top of a square kind of thing, you know, like a full-on squared out snare sample with another full-on squared off snare sample. When I say squared off, I mean just very, you know, saturated, pushed to the limit already. There's no real point in like doubling up that thing, so it doesn't really make sense to like cram a massive snare on top of a massive snare. But what you can do to get great results is layer on things on top of a great snare which are not another snare, so something else. It's always the case of adding new harmonics that are different, like I mentioned in yesterday's video about parallel compression, how it's better to like really change the harmonics of something before you add it in as something new. So we're going to choose 7 completely random sounds, and let's have a listen to them all. I've got firstly a clap, lovely nice crunchy clap. We've got a white noise rattlesnake effects that I created in Vital. We've got some static. We've got a wood block. That's going to be a little bit tough. We've got a rim, acoustic rim shot, also will be a little bit tough. And we've got an acoustic snare and ride. So, it's like a, yeah, it's like cymbal with a snare, with an acoustic snare. And then we've got some wood scraping. Okay, so if I go to my 3 golden rules, what you want to do is when you're layering on top of the snares, you want to keep your main fundamental snare to have the transient as being the only transient in all of the snare layers. So we're going to have to take the transient out on all of the layers that we add in. So the 3 golden rules are, for each new layer, take off the transient, number 1. EQ out the low end, number 2, up to about 500 hertz, will give or take. And number 3, then turn the volume down and mix it in, so it's in the background always. Yeah, so our fat and juicy main snare is always going to be the foreground, and all of the layers we're going to add in are all going to be middle ground or background. Okay, so we'll get started. And yeah, one more thing I wanted to mention, those are the 3 golden rules, but then also we can obviously adjust the actual piece of audio that we want to use and the length of it as well. So that's the final thing to do for each layer. So once we've done that, if we want to add extra stereo effects like reverb and delay on the layers, we can do that as well as a bonus. So firstly, this already sounds quite wonderful. Oh, and one more thing, we don't have to have all of the layers on every snare. We can like chop and change between them. So we can do like a call and response snare layer technique as well. So firstly, transient shaping. And I can go all the way down and then I can go back up until I find a nice balance. I might try around there. And then again, we're going to just do our quick and easy low cut. Seems pretty good. And then maybe we'll turn it down a little bit as the 3rd and final part of the rules. And that's great. So we've got a clap layer already. Let's see how it sort of sounds in the mix. So perhaps it might be slightly too long. So we can go ahead and shorten it if we think it needs it. But let's listen to it a bit longer here. So it's probably slightly a bit long. So I'll just shorten the files a little bit here. And we'll just take it down to somewhere around there. And then we'll just fade them out. We can also use a transient shaper to play with the sustain, but they kind of end a bit abruptly, so I'm sort of going to curve them off a bit, make it slightly longer, and then I will use the transient shaper as well to take the sustain down a bit. That's pretty good. I think I kind of liked a bit of that longer tail in it, so let's bring it out a bit longer. And we'll just increase the fade a bit. That's quite good around there. So let's add in our next sample. We're going to do the rattlesnake noise, and this one is going to be a little bit... We're going to have to really chop this one nicely. Let's try and aim for something around there. And this one's really going to have a nice long fade on it as well. And we're going to have to curve this quite a lot. And that adds a nice level of depth in the background, right at the back of the room. So that's quite a nice layer there. I'm going to fade it a bit more extremely. Okay, so sort of around that length I think is quite nice, and it adds this extra level of high-end depth, which I'm feeling that. It's obviously a precise process, you know, getting all the lengths to work well together. Okay, this one doesn't need much processing because it's already been done mostly, you know. It doesn't really have any low end in it anyway, and it doesn't really have a transient. Okay, we'll just turn it down a little bit. Let's go straight in for our next sample, because we can also always go back and adjust them to make them perfect once they're all in. So let's get the static in there. This is interesting here. And I quite like it has a short, kind of small little transient at the start. So we'll just take that off quickly. And then again, it's super long and it goes on forever, so we're going to have to fade it quite a lot again here. So let's try that. I'm going to leave the volume up on that one, I think, because it's a little bit of a quiet sample, but it seems to be in quite a good position, I think. It's almost a little bit, perhaps a little bit too quiet. So maybe I can actually, on this one, boost it up a little bit. So you can start to hear it around there. Okay, we'll just check there's no rumble in it, which there probably is. You can see there is, yeah. Okay, we've got a little bit of static on there. That's a very subtle one, but I like it. Definitely can hear it in there. Let's try the block next. And this one is not really very audible, and that's probably because it's mostly like a transient, you know. So that's the problem with this kind of one. It would almost work better as like a offbeat kind of rhythm, you know, something. It would almost work better like that, you know, but you know, as a separate like part of the drums. However, I'm still going to try and mix it into my layer, and how I'm going to do that to make it actually fit a little bit better is we're going to use convolution on this one because it's so short, and it's just sort of almost only a transient, you know, which is not really ideal because we don't really want transients. We want to take them off always, like I mentioned. So just going to take enough of it off, and we're going to EQ the low end out again. And then, most importantly, we're going to convolute this one because that's going to make it longer, because it's just too short to be heard otherwise, you know. So what we can do is go for something like a small control room, maybe, or maybe even something a little bit longer. That's a little bit too bright for me. Let's try the small control room, because that was quite a good length. But I think if I go one step further and just add a little ping pong delay just to make it slightly longer as well. Nice fast one. Something around there. We'll try that in the mix with all the other snares. It's almost a little bit too long. Okay, so we've got a layer in here now, which is very obviously almost like a bit of resonance, you know, and it has a bit of a pitch on it. And I'm not sure if the pitch is necessarily the same as the actual snare, but I'm not too bothered, to be honest, because it's such a small background layer, and if it's a bit sort of detuned from the original, it's not really a great worry for me. So anyway, we have really lengthened it with that reverb and delay, so I might shorten the sustain a bit now, just to get it to be not quite as extreme. But now I think that's quite a nice layer in the background, and I just have to check the low end one more time. Okay, let's try it with the beat and everything again. Let's have a little see where we're at so far with everything together, and then we'll move on to the final 3 layers I've got left to go in. And when my bass is on, you know, the bass is quite full on, so it's difficult to hear the exact layers. That's why I've just had to mute it for a moment. But it's all good. It's the layers are all stacking up one bit at a time. And let's add the next one, and this is going to be the rim shot now, the acoustic rim. You can hear that one. Again, it's similar to the woodblock. Like I mentioned, it would be a bit difficult because it's just a transient, or it's, you know, it's quite short. But we'll just take that off a bit, and then again we'll just EQ out. You can hear there's a lot of low end in this one. We'll just try that in the mix. quite like that. The wood block has to come down a little bit, I think. But I think that rim actually fills out quite a nice amount of content there. Okay, so that's sort of quite nicely mixed around there, I believe. And the transient's not too extreme. So let's go for our next one then. This is the another acoustic one with a ride on top. And again there, it's got a little bit of a transient, but not too extreme. Mostly it's got a lot of low end in though, which is fine, but we're going to take some of that out. Let's test it again with all the others. I really like that one. It's got a lovely sort of little roll to it at the end. So I'm going to definitely keep that in. And then, yeah, what we can do after is we can do the call and response between the layers once it's all done. This one is a little bit too long. I think the sound just tails off for too long. So let's fade it a little bit more. That's one of the best layers so far, I think. Yeah, that really adds a nice bit. So let's do the last one, the wood scraping. I quite like this. It's a little bit too, yeah, something around there. And again, we've got to fade that, definitely. That's nice though, it gives a nice extra kind of timbre and rhythm to the snare. Again, for this one, we'll just shake the transient a bit for that first little point. And then you can hear there's a lot of rumble in this one, so let's take a bunch of that out. And maybe it could just start slightly earlier, then it would be a little bit more perfect, I think. Yeah, that always went a bit too far, maybe around there. It's pretty good, a little bit earlier. Yeah, that's pretty spot on around there, I think. And that's the last layer done. And so they all kind of work together as a nice group. That wood scrape needs to be a bit quicker to finish. And we can go ahead and group all of these snares together. And you can, it's definitely going to clip quite a lot, but we'll just put a clipper on there. It should sound the same still. Okay, so with all the layers off, with all the layers on, much more interesting. Adds loads of extra depth and interest to it, but it's still quite short and tight, and it still feels like one snare. And the reason that it works and that I've been able to literally just randomly pick any layer is because of my principles of the 3 golden rules, which is take off the transient on every layer, EQ out most of the low end on all of them, and then mix the volumes down so that they're like not overtaking the main one. And with those 3 golden rules, you can literally layer on as many snares as you want, really, within reason. But yeah, you know, at some point it's going to be pointless. But I mean, even this is slightly pointless. I probably don't need all of them in there, you know, but let's try it anyway. And now, you know, it's all about how the layers are going to interact with everything else in your mix, and how the timbre and the vibe is going to, is going to change depending on which layers you emphasize or use. And so I feel there's one I can really hear loudly, which is difficult for me to figure out. I think it could it be the scrape, or could it be the rim? Yeah, I feel like this one is a little bit too starting to phase with the main snare a bit. So I'm just going to bring that one down a little bit more. And I think it needs to be faded as well. And I really like them all as they are, actually. I could probably bounce that down as like a whole new snare if I wanted to. You know, realistically, there would be no problem in just bouncing that out, bouncing them all as one. But we'll leave it in the group for now, so in case I want to mess around with it later. But let's see if you can hear the layering amongst the bass. If I go a bit heavier with my sidechain on my for the snare against the bass. So if I take all those layers off, I'll do a quick A and B for you guys again before I finish. Really, really nice. And you don't really have to do any more. You don't have to do any more post-processing. But one thing you can do to glue them all together, and this is again instead of using compression, because remember, if you compress it, it's going to take down the volume of your main one, and you've already set up the dynamics. So don't glue it to compress it, because that's counterintuitive. But to glue it together, to make it feel like they fit together more, actually all the kind of lengths and tails of them are all like random and like slightly, yeah, they're all different. They don't like finish at the same time. So if you take the sustain down on the group, it'll like shape the end off on all of the layers together on the with the same setting, and that'll give it a sense of cohesion without affecting the whole without affecting the whole dynamics that you've already gone ahead and set up. You know, it's just going to take the tail and use the tail kind of shaping to glue everything together, like in how it's perceived to be as one, you know. So yeah, much nicer than before. I would say we've added on like an extra, almost would go as far to say like 30% of extra like harmonics and excitement and fun in the snare, like maybe 35% of extra joy has come from all of those layers, and I just picked them all completely randomly. And yeah, using those three golden rules. What were they again? Take the transient off the layer, take the low end rumble out, mix the volume down, get the lengths right, and fade them off properly. Okay, so 4 rules really, but the first 3 are the most important because the length part is kind of obvious. Yes, anyway, that was my tutorial today on mega snare, creative snare layering. Not sure what I'm going to call this video yet. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys are having a great week. Tomorrow I'm dropping a new track from myself on my label, Artificial Music. If you guys have the how can I put it? If you guys are feeling generous, you can do something for me for free, absolutely free. It will cost you 30 seconds of your time, but it won't cost you any money. Go ahead and follow my label on Instagram and SoundCloud. If you can do both, that'd be great. If you haven't got an Instagram account, just download one and follow it. And same for SoundCloud. Give us a follow on both. It really helps me and all of the other artists on the label as well. And it's directly linked to my YouTube channel and all of my history of people that I've taught. And you know, there's a lot of students on my label and a lot of other great musicians on there. And I really want to build this platform up as much as I can, and I really need your help to do it. So please go ahead and follow the label on SoundCloud and Instagram. That'd be great. And tomorrow there will be a brand new release as well from me, which I'm really excited to share. So until then, take care, have a great day, peace out, much love.